Last year we had a chance to drive the Mazda CX-30, and after spending a week with that vehicle, the verdict, well, it's a great alternative to the Mazda 3, especially if you want something with a little higher ride height. Plus, it provides and feels like a much more premium vehicle than a lot of its other competitors. Well, this year, Mazda introduced a turbo version of the Mazda 3, so naturally, following that is the CX-30 Turbo, and here it is. Let's take a look on the outside. Personally, I think the CX-30 looks better than the Mazda 3. It has really nice proportions to it. So the turbo version doesn't look a lot different, but some of the different features that you'll see at the front, first of all, you get the signature LED Mazda headlights, tail lights. You get a black grille, a lot of black accents here, standard 18-inch black aluminum wheels. You get a black trim around the door. Of course, you have that cladding that goes over the wheels, down the side. It gives it a raised up look. It does look pretty rugged. This one is equipped with winter tires since it is wintertime. Now, onto the back here, besides the red, this is one of my favorite colors in the Mazda lineup, and this is the polymetal gray metallic. It has some gray and blue mixed together. I think it works really well with the black. So you have this roof spoiler with the integrated third brake light here. You have turbo badging, of course, this is a turbo, larger exhaust outlets. This does have a power liftgate. However, you do not get a foot activated version of that. Once it comes open though, quite a bit of room. You have a built-in tonneau cover here. Now, one of the competitors, the closest competitors to this CX-30 would probably be the Subaru Crosstrek, and I'd say they're kind of close. The Subaru might have a little bit more room on this though. You can fold those seats down. You get 60-40 split. When folding the rear seats down, there is no release in the back, so you will have to do it from the seat. You have a spare tire underneath the floor. This one also has a roadside assistance and a first aid kit. I'm not quite sure if those are standard, but I will find out about that. Most of you know I'm a fan of this. When you have a power lift gate, to have two buttons, one to close it and one to actually lock and close it. So lock and close it, you hit that, you can walk away. You don't have to wait for it to close before you lock it. So let's take a look inside. This is equipped with the keyless entry. So just grab and open it up, or you can just hit this and lock it, just like that. Now, it does not work for the rear doors, unfortunately, but just for the front. One thing we mentioned for the previous video, though, is the height of the CX-30 makes it really easy for entry and exit. And especially if you might have mobility issues, I have a bad knee, or maybe you might be a little bit older, it is a very welcome benefit. I mentioned on the previous CX-30 GT review, the non-turbo version, how well appointed the interior is, and this turbo is no different whatsoever. Let's take a little tour of this. So it's pretty well loaded. You get these leather seats, full leather seats, front and the back, leather steering wheel. This is a heated steering wheel. However, this is one of my pet peeves. A lot of you might know this, is that this steering wheel, like my Toyota Highlander, is only heated halfway. Yes, I know you're gonna say you shouldn't be having your hands on the top or the bottom. You don't drive that way. You're absolutely correct. 9 and 3 or maybe 10 and 2. However, when you're maneuvering your vehicle, you will touch those other touch points. And if your hands are cold and you're holding a nice warm steering wheel on the sides, it's really not a nice experience when you're touching those cold areas. So that might be just me or just very few of us that have that pet peeve, but it really does bother me. In behind, you have a 7-inch digital display that is kind of a hybrid display. I absolutely love the gauge set in the CX-30. It's very clean, it's modern, it's very technical, and it's very, very easy to use. Along with that, you also get a color head-up display up front. This also is equipped with traffic sign recognition, so when it even sees a stop sign, you'll see that in your head-up display as well. This is also equipped with a power sunroof with a manual shade. as you see right there. This comes standard with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the GT Turbo here also gets the 12-speaker Bose sound system. This really is a premium interior. How premium, you ask? Check this out. Just before I picked this one up, I dropped off a brand new BMW M8 Competition Grand Coupe. It's a $160,000+ vehicle, and minutes after I dropped that off, I hopped into here. Now, I'm not comparing the actual performance of that vehicle. Yes, that has 617 horsepower, but I'm just telling you the experience of your touch points, how you perceive luxury, how's it feel, how's it look, how's the fit and finish. And yes, the materials are not quite the same on this vehicle, but the gap really isn't as far as you'd expect on that vehicle when you get into here. You get into here and you're just like, yeah, I just came from a BMW, now I'm in here, and it feels almost like a natural transition. It's not like, oh boy, is this thing ever cheap? You don't get that feeling at all. Up front, you have a place where you can put your phone. Let's say you have 2 cup holders here, and I mentioned this on the previous review, I really like the armrest here because not only does it flip up, but it also slides. And you have this large hole here, or opening, where you could slide. Let's say I have my phone here, you could just slide it in there if you want and just close it up. It's really, really handy. Along with these seats being leather and heated, another thing that I like about them is you can actually lower them quite a bit. I'm quite sunken down right now, and that's the type of position that I like to drive. I like to feel like I'm more like in a car than raised up. You have your tilt and telescopic steering wheel, get yourself in the nice position. You also have memory settings for the seat and mirrors, but if you do want to sit up higher, which some people do like, you can go up quite high, like really, really high. I feel like I'm driving a big 4x4 right now. In the back, you get some very nice deep footwells. You're raised up quite a bit here. You have those beautiful leather seats, tinted windows, lots of room for your feet. So a lot of vehicles don't have, they might have a lot of leg room and knee room, but when it comes down to your foot area, it's very, very narrow. It's very, very tall. You do have air vents. You do not get climate control in this. Armrest with built-in drink holders, and you also get some fancy ISOFIX hooks for your child seats if you want to put kids back here. So all in all, not too bad. The seats are extremely comfortable. And headroom wise, I do have not much headroom. It's amazing how much room that these smaller vehicles have. Also, you can see in the seat back, they've actually carved it out even more for even more knee room if you're a taller person. There's not much to complain about for the back seat in a vehicle of this class. It's roomy, it's comfortable. If I was to nitpick on one thing, there's no USB plugs back here, and that would be a nice thing. The naturally aspirated 2.5 CX-30 puts out 186 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque, whereas this new CX-30 Turbo puts out 250 horsepower, so that's 64 horsepower more than the naturally aspirated one, and get this, for torque, 320 pound-feet of torque. Now, those numbers are reduced a little if you use regular gasoline. Those are based on high octane, so 93 octane. If you use 87, just regular, normal gasoline, you get 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. But the torque is the big number. The horsepower, yeah, you do get a little bit more, but the thing is, will you notice the difference between 250 horsepower and 227? It all depends how you drive, because that is mainly at over 4,000 RPM where you'll find those differences. Okay, let's just put it into sport mode here. And this is not a sports car, but let's see how that 250 horsepower works. Very, very brisk acceleration, but the biggest thing, it is really, really smooth. Now the power goes through a 6-speed automatic transmission, and when you get into the GT Turbo, it only comes in all-wheel drive, and that's a good thing anyways. It gets you the best traction in all circumstances. Mazda has done a lot of work to try to provide a more premium experience in all of their vehicles lately, and one of the biggest differences is how quiet and smooth the operation is. We are on a fairly bumpy road here. There is minimal suspension noise. The steering input is nice and precise. The brakes are very linear. They are not that boosted, however. You do have to press them quite a bit to get some good stopping power. That's not a bad thing, you just have to get used to it. And this CX-30 is equipped with GVC Plus, so that's their G vector control. I've explained it before, so let me just put this in a nutshell. What it does is the system will analyze vertical loads on the tires. It uses all the sensors in the vehicle, and it controls the torque by just a little bit. So if you are, for instance, entering a corner, it knows just at the point when you're about to turn in, it'll actually decrease the torque just a little bit, so your front end gets more weight on it, so it bites in, so you can turn easier. And then once you turn, you get your turning in, then the rear wheels will start getting traction and you'll get power to those as well. The Plus in the GV Plus adds in braking as well. So not only does it control the engine torque, let's just say when you're turning a corner and your steering wheel comes back into position, it will apply a tiny little bit of brake. And what that does is it prevents, let's say, some overcorrection, and it does make it easier for the driver and the passenger. We're gonna go around a few twisties here. We put into sport mode. There are paddle shifters also, by the way. There's actually a minimal amount of body roll for this little crossover slash SUV. And I think that GVC Plus does have something to do with it, because we are on a higher platform too. I'm on purposely oversteering it just to see what we can make it do, and it's actually very, very stable. Mazda's philosophy on adding a turbo to the CX-30 isn't just about, hey, let's slap a turbo on, get more horsepower so we can get some neck snapping power and faster 0 to 60s. No. In fact, they even said they don't even keep track of 0 to 60 metrics with their competitors because it doesn't really matter as much as what you think. You see, you could have two different vehicles that get to 60 in the same amount of time, but how they do it is the big deal. And what they want to do, they want to provide a nice consistent experience, that nice G force that pulls you back into your seat, and have it constant, so there's not a lot of jerkiness or anything like that. And you know what, I really have noticed when you're driving this vehicle, regardless of what gear you're in, you seem to be always in that nice sweet spot for power and torque. And they really have tuned this vehicle to drive more like a naturally aspirated vehicle. You don't really notice as much that you're in a turbocharged vehicle. And when you demand more performance, I'm gonna press that accelerator, you get this nice consistent surge. There's no lag, for instance, and if you notice, this vehicle did not gear down even. And a lot of other vehicles would have had to gear down, and that's even nicer than now. If I really push it, I geared down one gear where some other vehicles might have had to do two. Now there's one thing that you might do with this CX-30 that you might not with your Mazda 3 Turbo, and that is take it off-road and do a little light-duty off-roading. Well, this is actually more capable than you think. Obviously, it is higher, so you have more clearance. Yes, it is all-wheel drive. That also helps. And to aid in that, there is a button to the left of the steering wheel, and once you press that, it actually, the program goes into essentially kind of opposite of what you would, what it wants to do on the road. So on road, we talked about that G vector control, the GVC, where we're going to enter a corner right now, and as I enter it, it's going to decrease the torque just a slight bit, so it lets my front end bite a little bit. Now in off-road mode, first of all, it's going to apply more torque to the rear right off the start, so you have more traction for the rear. Normally this is a front bias car, front driven bias, and also when you're driving off-road, if it senses whatever vehicle that doesn't have traction, well, instead of just going and trying to switch over to the other wheels, it's going to apply the brakes of that wheel and apply more torque. When on the road, it actually decreases the torque. So they really have programmed it very well, and the best thing about it is that they've done it so it doesn't compromise your on-road driving, because they realize even for people that on the weekend take this on adventures, whether you're going hiking or going camping, regular 99% of the time you are still driving it on road, and you want all those nice on-road characteristics. In my opinion, adding a turbo onto the CX-30 is probably the best thing Mazda could have done for this model. The CX-30 slots in right about in the middle, and but it's a fairly new model and it's gaining traction, and I can see really why. It has that really nice size that people want. It's really good for going in and out of spots in the city, but even if you're off-road, it's nice to have something a little bit more nimble. You have utility with it, and the turbocharged engine just does everything so well. It's not just about blinding speed or acceleration, as we mentioned. And by the way, this compared to the naturally aspirated engine, it's almost no difference in fuel economy. How crazy is that? It's like 0.4 liters per 100K difference. That's pretty well nothing. And you're getting 64 more horsepower. So that's another added benefit. So what's it cost? Well, if you compare this to the regular 2.5 GT, this is only $2,400 more. If you're looking for a small utility and the drive is important to you, I would really consider having a look at this CX-30 Turbo. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It should definitely be on your list. Anyways, that's it for the review. I hope to see you on the next Everyday Reviews. And don't forget, give it a thumbs up if you like the video. Cheers.